Assalamu alaikum dear students. I hope you will be fine enough. And this is Dr. Ijaz Tatlah with you to discuss the next component of benchmarking. Earlier in the previous session, we have learned about what benchmarking is and what steps are involved in benchmarking and what is the reason for benchmarking and the levels of benchmarking. And also we did an assignment on this, and we learn about the objectives of benchmarking. Today we have to discuss the phases of benchmarking. No doubt, like other activities, like other systems, benchmarking have also 6 phases. So organizations that benchmark adapt the phases to best fit their own needs and culture. Although number of steps may vary from organization to organization, the following 6 steps contain the core techniques. Number 1, decide what to benchmark. In the first phase, it is decided what to benchmark. To understand current performance and have a plan, study others, learn from the data, use the findings. Here in this phase, these 6 steps are taken. First of all, it is decided by the stakeholders what is their need, for what purpose they have to benchmark, what a specific step about which might be, if we do take example from the system of education, might be governance, might be content delivery, might be infrastructure, facilities, or level of coordination and ranking, so and so. And it is when once it is decided what to benchmark, then it is decided to understand the current performance of that very much factor for to which the organization or the individuals or stakeholders have to go for benchmarking. From the current performance, they decide and plan what to do next. Then there is for comparative studies, the prevailing rivals are studied. From that study, data is collected, and after analyzation of that data, analyzing that data, the results are revealed, and finally these findings sports towards the benchmarking. So in the first phase, where the stakeholders have decided what to benchmark, herein which process are causing the most trouble. So for that, they have worked for the troubleshooter one. After identification of the most troubleshooter, they go for the process to that contribute most to customer satisfaction and which are not performing up to the expectations. So customary expectations and needed are kept in mind. So for that process, it is decided what are the competitive pressures impacting the organization the most. There are studies, and finally it is studied that what processes or functions have the most potential for differentiating our organization from the competition. So in the prevailing system, the competitors from the competitors, it is differentiated the potential on the basis of which they are different and how they are going differently from the existing one. Second phase, to understand current performance, thoroughly understand and document the current process for each and every component, for each and every activity, for each and every uh, time. Exact data, exact measurement have been made. Flowcharts along with the cause and effect diagrams are helpful. For this purpose, different causal comparative diagrams or flowcharts are made. Pay attention to inputs and outputs. So the quality, kind, factors, smoothness, pleasingness, market orientedness, and uh, client requirements. Towards the client requirements, attention is paid, both what has been input and what are the outputs, because financial impact and time consumption and labor and all these things are needed to be kept in mind. So for this purpose, current performance is undergone through deep consideration. Then the third phase is to plan. The benchmarking team decides what type of benchmarking to perform, what type of data to collect, what method of collection of data be used. So these three key keywords, key components are kept in mind while planning. Then to study others is the fourth phase. In this phase, it is studied that how are the best in class process practiced, what are the measurable results. So both of these components are studied. And finally, in the next phase, learn from the data. Data collection and in-depth study ultimately reveals some data. So the data is analyzed and it is depicted from that data that is there a gap between the organization's performance and the performance of the best in class organizations. जो राइवल्स हैं, जो पैरेलल ऑर्गेनाइजेशंस काम कर रही हैं, उनकी परफॉर्मेंस, उनकी जो वर्किंग है, प्रोडक्शन है, उसके और द प्रिवेलिंग एग्जिस्टिंग जो ऑर्गेनाइजेशन है जिसमें लोग काम कर रहे हैं, जिसमें से बेंचमार्किंग कर रहे हैं, उनकी परफॉर्मेंस को वो कंपेयर करते हैं. दे नोट दैट इज देयर एनी difference between these performances, or is there any gap? So the gap is identified and its intensity and depth is measured, and it is also highlighted that why the gap is there, what does the best in class do differently that is better. So to bridge that gap, what the rivals are doing, if best in class practices were adopted, what would be the resulting improvement. So it's also kept in mind that after analysis of data, if the best in class practices are adopted, what will be its effect towards its uh, investments, towards its capacity, towards its marketing, towards the needs of customer at their pace, and the working class, the labor and managers. So as a whole, all of the things are kept in mind towards observing this. So these things are kept from learned from data. Identifiable benchmarks gap must be described and quantified. So these are be highlighted, these are be described in depth and quantified in figures and numbers or percentages so as to uh, meet that benchmarks. Processes must have inputs, activities, and outputs. So quantifiable, quantified inputs and and practices or activities in that ultimately provide some outputs are observed keenly, rather they are aligned with each other. Level of detail must also be eventual qualification, quantification. So level of detail must allow for eventual quantification. As I discussed for this alignment, if it is highlighted, so it should also be quantified. Additional gap analysis necessary to determine root causes. What are the actual roots due to the reasons due to which the gap has been created or gap is, gaps come from processes, practices, and general business practices, and the organizational and operational structure. Therefore, in addition to the earlier discussed gap analysis, some additional gaps like different practices and business practices or operational structure have been studied and thoroughly observed to identify the causes. And six phases use the findings. Whatever the findings have been yielded from those findings, they have to apply them, put into practice at their organization. Therefore, benchmarking must generate outcomes. Individuals who can formulate the modifications must be notified. Therefore, process owners and upper management must concur on the modification. They should uh, continuously do modification on the basis of these findings so as to meet or compete the one of the guru of quality, Dr. Joseph Joran, have also presented his philosophy of benchmarking. According to his philosophy, benchmarking cycle provides a well-established systematic approach to the benchmarking. As in his cycle, we can see, first of all, benchmark is done and it is learned from his benchmarking and lead. So benchmark, learn, lead. It starts from plan for benchmarking. Resultant in next step is collection of data, then validate the data, normalize data, analyze and report findings, understand performance gaps, develop action plan to do to uh, close gaps, and then go for again planning if the shortcomings are there. So it's a very precise and definite type uh, benchmarking cycle. Plan benchmarking. Let's see what according to the Duran philosophy, what he mean from plan of benchmarking. At this step, a kick-off meeting is held, during which the purpose, scope, methodology, and schedule are reviewed and agreed upon. Because it's self-explanatory, I think so. There is no need to go more in depth to explore that. On the other hand, an on-site benchmarking training workshop provides each participant with a detailed understanding of the benchmarking, the metrics to be used, and their definitions prior to data collection commencing. So, according to this plan, it is that in a smart conference, it has been discussed, described in detail with all of the participants, that what is the purpose of this benchmarking, what is the scope, what will be the methodology, and what will be the schedule or time consumption, how, where, when, what, where. And if all of the people are agreed, then go for some on-site benchmarking. There, the training participants must be have some workshop or some training to learn about the detailed understanding of that benchmarking. So, what type of the tool or methods are used for data collection to commence that? That's all about the planning of that benchmarking. Then it is the stage of execution. Here in this, for data collection, each participating asset completes a data. Here the point to be noted is that participating asset, whatever the worker, component, machine, tool, other thing is on use for data collection, it document and returns it to Duran benchmarking file agreed date. And within the schedule, whatever the time was given, the date and time was given, within that date time, they have to come back with some certain data. Help desk support is provided during the entire data collection process, such that any client's question are answered promptly. So in this phase, where data collection is in the field, many of the workers, many of the people, they can observe any hindrance. So to support them, there is help desk that answer their question and address their queries. All data is thoroughly validated through our rigorous and unique three-stage validation process to ensure accuracy prior to the analysis. So collected data is reviewed, viewed, and thoroughly validated with a rigorous and unique validation stage, and only the accurate data up to the mark data is analyzed, because the results have impact. This data have an impact on the results. So unvalidated or inaccurate data might not yield any reasonable results or fruitful results. How data is validated? All the data thoroughly validated through the rigorous validation process to ensure accuracy prior to the analysis. It is the spreadsheet, whatever type of the data is collected, that is validated with the original instrument. Then data is normalized. Normalized data mean data distribution should be normal spread or bell-shaped spread. Otherwise, skewed data will not yield any reasonable results. Skewness always have some deficiencies there. So in data, so only normalized data can be analyzed well in a way to avoid any skewness. The challenge in any benchmarking program is to ensure that performance comparisons between participating assets are made on a like for like basis. But uh, how can this be achieved for assets that are of differing sizes and designs? Yes, the measuring tools um, might have some different sizes or different designs, so they have to different measurements. So it is very necessary to normalize all the data collected from different sizes and designs of the assets. It is critical to reflect the drivers of cost and manpower, that is the installed equipment which must be operated and maintained in any effective normalization approach. The Joran complexity factor normalization methodology does this. Using this approach, benchmarks can be confident that direct comparisons between assets of differing technical complexity and size are made on a truly like for like basis, are valid and therefore result in actionable findings. Like for like basis mean uh, the information fit for collected and to be placed at the right place. For example, all of the components of validity, reliability, whether it is face, construct, measure, all these things are taken into consideration. That is the factors normalization methodology of Juran. So complex factors objectively uh, measured through those instruments. And then what is being done? It is analyzed. So in the result of some analysis, analyzed data gave some results on the basis of which findings are made. So during benchmarking will analyze the data, develop a comprehensive suite of charts and tables. It will further prepare a detailed written report of the benchmarking results tailored for organization, including a company-specific performance gap analysis. And finally, the comprehensive report includes around 200 key performance indicators, examining all aspects of the organizational assets operating the performance. So on the basis of these findings, what is being done? Understand the performance gap. These findings support towards understanding the gaps in the performance. So a detailed post-report debrief presentation of the benchmarking analysis is delivered to the company management teams to let them understand the performance gap. It provides an excellent opportunity to communicate the findings of the benchmarking. Presentations are made either face-to-face at company premises or via an online meeting. So at initial stage, where there some purpose, objective, needs were discussed and were agreed upon by all of the stakeholders, and then finally the tools were decided to collect the data and make some observations. And after normalization of that data, it was analyzed, and after analysis, findings were made on the basis of these findings. It is shared with the it's just like the research cycle complete, a Duran cycle of benchmarking completed, and it gives the uh, key points and guidelines to the leaders how they have to lead the organization. Certainly, uh, an action plan is developed. So An action plan of how to implement improvement activities relevant to the benchmarking results is prepared. It enables the organization to realize a return on invest benchmarking activity. Return on investment mean what they have invested, what they have wasted, and what they have to incorporate as a must. So it uh, leads towards the well-planned executable action plan. That was all about the cycle of action plan. Uh, during cycle of benchmarking guided by the quality guru Juran, Joseph Juran. At the moment, I would like to discuss the benefits of benchmarking. First of all, it helps to improve the process of effectiveness. It helps in cost reduction. Another benefit of benchmarking is it helps in cost reduction. It also provides the focus in planning operations. If process is effective, much effective, the production will be more and of good quality. And if cost is reduced, then market will be well. The company, those people will be well in market, catch the market, and ultimately it provides the focus in planning operations that ultimately results in the uh, uh, better production. The sharing of information may create opportunities for innovations. Definitely, when the different types of information is shared, opportunities are evolved. It assesses the firm existing position and provides a basis for establishing standards of performance. तो ये एक्चुअल पोजीशन उसकी जो है उसको असेस करने में मदद देती है बेंचमार्किंग, जिसकी बुनियाद पर फिर वो अपने स्टैंडर्ड्स एस्टेब्लिश करते हैं और अपने परफॉर्मेंस को बढ़ाते हैं. The cross comparison are make likely to expose different ways of doing things. So to think with the different angles and different ways, different methodologies, ultimately plays a role towards the well-being or good reputation of the. It provides evidence for additional resources. Definitely, on the basis of benchmarking, the stakeholders observe that what additional resources are needed and can be used to meet the standards. It facilitates multidisciplinary team building and networking. Definitely, they do have different trainings on the workshop, different strategies to work. So team building and networking is ultimate and hidden purpose of this benchmarking. And at the moment, I would like to discuss with you the problems with benchmarking. What types of problems are faced when benchmarking is in process? Competitors may refuse to share their information. Yes. So competitive benchmarking is the most difficult type of benchmarking to practice. For obvious reasons, organizations are not interested in helping a competitor by sharing information. I must highlight here as a visiting faculty when we go for lectures in other universities, our leadership, especially the former leaders of this university, have been of the view that if you go to some other university, you are strengthening your opponents, you are strengthening their hands. It's very true. When there is the competition, then the members of one organization are working for the betterment of their rivals. It might play some role towards that goes against the previous one. So the apprehension of the readers regarding this is uh, undoubtful. That is very true. It looks at all aspects of the competition strategy. This does not just include the disassembly and examination of the product, but it analyzes the entire customer's path of organization's competitor. This is a difficult thing to do because this information is not easily obtained. Solution of this problem is where the competitors are not agree to share their information. What can uh, the company do? The company should conduct an extensive research. It is also important to remember when using competitive benchmarking that the goal is to focus on your direct competitors and not the industry as a whole. So the first and foremost competition is with the your rivals, not the industry overall. Reverse engineering. This is the process of buying a competitor's product, dismantling it to understand its components and its configuration. It's very easy, simple, and true solution. The reverse engineering. Difficulties in deciding what activities to benchmark. Yes, while the stakeholders are there to decide what should be benchmarked, so there are different difficulties. This is where a company finds it difficult to make a choice on which activity to benchmark as opposed to others. Therefore, the company may first find itself contracting or irrelevant activities and leaving the most important activities. At this, the company will be forced to carry out so many activities which make it expensive for the company. So if it is not decided what to benchmark for identification of the benchmarking to decide what they have to do, um, an extensive uh, surveys or benchmarking will be done that will be expensive. Its solution is so company should subdivide its processes so as to identify the most important activities to prioritize. They should involve experts in the relevant areas of concern so as to ensure quality decision making. So it ultimately help in this way. It can be expensive to a firm. This is also a problem. Benchmarking will involve an extensive research and experts' knowledge in order to be successful. Therefore, company has to spend more and a resource required, thus increasing the operating costs of the company is a hurdle, is a problem. Solution of this problem is the company should identify the key areas to benchmark and state the desired objective. Benchmark may be yesterday's solution to tomorrow's problem. It's also a problem. Since the operating environment is highly dynamic, the information obtained from the competitors becomes obsolete before implementation, thus the solution will be ineffective. Due to changes in technology, current processes may be ineffective tomorrow. So solution to this problem is be up to date with technology. So currency of knowledge of technology is needed. That will play a vital role towards the updated benchmarking style and competitive behavior of the market. So this is all about the phases and cycle of benchmarking. One of the quality guru Duran and problems faced and benefits. Again, in the end, I would like to share that any comments, any questions, queries from your side are welcomed. You may write in chat room over here with Google Classroom. I am here to respond your queries, questions. Stay blessed. Allah Hafiz.